Alright everyone, welcome back. Now in today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at Lucid Motors and also a portfolio update within my Lightyear account, which for those that don't know is my growth-based investment. In fact, let's take a look at the Lightyear account and see which stocks I hold. And so scrolling down, we can see that there's only 2 companies that I now hold. The reason is that I sold out of Shopify. If we scroll down to the recent activity section, we can see that I ended up selling the full amount. This executed in 2 trade orders, one with an average order of 48.96 per share and the other one at 49.07. Since then the stock has dropped and increased, but overall I was happy selling at around the $50 mark, and I've since allocated those funds into Lucid Motors, so that has caused the average of my holdings to decrease somewhat. Now the Lightyear app, only once you sell out fully, this price per share calculation is somewhat incorrect as it doesn't decrease, but we can see that average price per share moved from the $6 mark all the way to close to $10, and that was due to allocating the Shopify funds into Lucid Motors. And the price point was somewhat high, $12.18, but the goal is to sell out of these funds once it hits around $12.50 or so. At least that's the plan. We can see that there's been a sell-off. The last performance, for instance, there's been a decrease in 0.5% to the previous trading day. And so that leads me on to some of the news articles out there regarding Lucid Motors and whether or not I plan to sell the other portion of the funds that I've had since around the $6 mark. We can actually see that when I started averaging in from early December, ranging from $6 to $7 there. And I should state that there's been moments, such as on, say, 24th of January, where I've bought and sold out very quickly within the matter of minutes. And there's other examples more recently where we can see I bought around $2,500 and then sold out with a tiny profit there. Now that's possible because when you have a larger amount of money, within a given day you can see the stock price moves and settles at certain prices. But there are moments, for instance, we can see that at a certain point in time we have $11.74. There's then a sell-off at $11.64, and generally speaking, over a small time window, there's going to be some push forwards again. Whether it's going to hit the price that you have in mind is not always the case, but it's these small trades that you are able to make money. It's not something that I would advocate, given that it's risky. And if there's a certain price point, let's just say for instance you wanted to sell at $12, well, that price never reached and then you're stuck into the trade. And we can talk about techniques to mitigate this, such as setting a stop loss every time. But these are just some of the different investment strategies when dealing with growth-based stocks. You have to strategize how you're selling out your positions as well to make that profit. And that approach is very different from the likes of dividend-based investing, where you only have to focus on the buy-in side, assuming that you're holding on to the stocks for the long term and not selling out. Now let's take a look at a quick summary of the last few days in terms of what's been going on with Lucid Motors. There's a massive push up in the stock where there was speculation that the connection between the Saudi Arabia investment fund was going to buy out the rest of the company. That sent the price up almost 100% at a certain point in time and settled around 43% at closing. And then we saw a little bit of a sell-off, around 6% or so the following day, and then the 0.5% that you saw on the screen earlier. So it's just speculation at the moment, but in terms of whether it makes sense, given that the investment fund from Saudi Arabia already holds over 60% of Lucid, with a promise to buy up to 100,000 electronic vehicles over the next 10 years. This connection with Lucid is very solid. Lucid also announced that they'll be building a plant in Saudi Arabia as well. But what we have to understand is that in the event that the investment fund sells out, if they hold a majority, then they're able to take the company from public to private. That's somewhat of a concern for shareholders, given that the price is fluctuating. Some individuals, and both of these are true for myself, buy in at say $6 a share and then all the way up to $12, $13 or potentially higher in the last week or so. More likely than not, if a company goes from public to private, then a certain premium or a certain percentage above the closing stock price would be added on for shareholders to effectively give up their position. Any shareholders out there would vote whether or not the company can be handed over and effectively converted to being a private company. But it's individuals with the largest stake that help whether the company can become private or not. And then there's, at that point in time, whenever it happens, it could be a month, a year from now. We don't really know what the closing price will be. And so if you're an individual that has unfortunately bought around the $50 or so share over a year ago, or even around the $18 to $20 mark, then it's unclear whether or not that return on investment is going to be positive or not. Given that if we have a closing price at say $10 or so, then maybe there'll be a premium of a couple of dollars. And so the investment fund would have to work out what number would make sense for the majority of shareholders to allow conversion from public to private company to take place. But at the same time, the hedge fund doesn't want to be paying too much of a premium. And that's why if you are trading like I am during this period with Lucid Motors, it probably makes sense to have some kind of an exit strategy. And so just going over my exit strategy, and I briefly touched on this earlier, but to expand a little bit more, we can see that with almost $20,000 or so invested into Lucid, the first $10,000 I plan to sell around $12.50. Unfortunately, I have to set the limit order again each day, and then with the rest of the funds, this is where it becomes a bit debatable. I was planning at selling around $13. At the moment, it's not looking too likely that the price will hit that value. But we have to remember, should this news be true with the investment fund buy-in, then my average with that portion of the fund was around $6. So I'm going to be making a decent profit, even if there's a small premium on top. But in my mind, and I could be wrong here, but around $18 to $20 should turn into a private company. Then that would be a great return on investment for me. At the same time, Lucid stock price was heading towards an $18 mark regardless of the news that took place. Sometimes this is unfortunate because you have positive news, but it just means that investors are quickly buying and selling the stock, and a large increases in the price over the mid to long term isn't ideal, even when you're trying to buy and sell with growth-based stocks. And so even if this trade deal doesn't take place, we could see Lucid still pushing towards $18 or so, in which case that may mean holding the stock for a longer period might be beneficial. But my plan right now is to sell out half of my position around $12.50 should that price make it, just to reduce the exposure that I have. And so let me know in the comments below if you're investing in Lucid Motors, what is your exit strategy? I read through all the comments and respond as always. New videos are posted each week. Thanks again who's been subscribed to this channel. Share this content with any friends, family members that might find this interesting. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.